Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Let me just get rid of the music. There we go. Welcome to the afternoon session, the Bold Explorer Live reading with me, Richard Vobes, and make sure we are going out, which is good. We are reading a Sussex Peep show. This is episode 3 of our reading, and we're halfway through chapter 2, I think it is, or is it chapter 3? I think we started chapter 3, didn't we? Let me just double check where we are. Yeah, chapter 3, In the Heart of the Downs is where we are. And if you're following at home, we're on page 40. Hello to Nigel Sadler, who got here nice and early. Hello to John F., the lovely Julia. To Philip Hammond and Fiona. To Justine Jones, Turbo Stream, Linda Kane, James Poulton, hello to you. Michael White and Morton Lewis. And whoever else happens to pop along, it'd be lovely to see you. Hello, Dr. Vibes, Julia and Adrian, Turbo, Poppy, the neighbour's black and white cat from Madrid. Nice to see you. Yes, so I went out this morning and I'm putting together a little video, which I'm not quite sure when it will come out, of the early part of Walter Wilkinson's trip from Rudgwick to Wisborough Green. And I was trying to sort of trace his route. Didn't have a lot of time. I was doing it from memory, from what we read. I forgot to take the book with me. But anyway, it's interesting following the route. So I may do another one of that. And interestingly, I went over the Way and Arun Canal. And if he'd actually followed the towpath, he could have got to a spit of Wisborough Green a lot quicker. But I don't think he does that. Anyway, we will carry on with our reading. I have set up here, let's have a look. First of all, another photograph we've got of Walter Wilkinson and his Peep Show revival here, which shows his puppets. And if I scroll down here, we can see some of his puppets. Pearly King glove puppet at the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford, and there's a close-up of it. It says Wilkinson was a marvellously expressive wood carver, and the faces of his puppets are always enlivened by character. So there we go. Look at that. All sorts of different characters of his puppets. I also have at the hand, I don't know how this will come over, but I've got the side-by-side maps from the National Library of Scotland to follow. This is a 1913 OS map to try and follow some of the routes that he may or may not have taken, because I realised that some of the roads that he tried to avoid the roads, didn't he? The main arteries, and he goes on the byways and the backways. So it's quite interesting to follow that whilst we've got that opportunity. So let us continue. Now, the last time we had him, I think the morning had arrived, and he's up there on what we think is Kithurst Hill in the middle of nowhere. And I did look to see, because he calls it Kitsun, but I think it must be Kithurst Hill. But anyway, morning had come. We lifted our heads to look into a sky vaguely blue. There was green grass at the tent door, but after that a weird grey world, a primeval world, not quite created. Where the fields and woods should have been was I've got here, I don't know whether that's a misprint, a wanton, a sea of grey mist, long grey strips of a still sea, from which rose innumerable grey islands, dark, mysterious lands of the time before man was. Oh yes, you can imagine being up there on the downs and the low cloud has come in and you've got these islands in the mist. It's very, very poetic. A little more awake, and we crawled out into the sunlight, catching the green crest of the down, into a keen, bright morning, very new and early, sweetly fragrant with herbs. It was a glittering world, meticulously clear. Every blade of grass, every sprig of heather and thyme, every leaf and blade in the turf had its beads of dew, flashing back every colour. And as the sun rose, the vague, melancholy mists below us began to change into our own homely world. One grey island, a brilliant emerald on one grey island, a brilliant emerald meadow emerged from the mist. On another appeared a house and trees, magically suspended on the wreathing mists. Woods, farms, rivers, they soon were all distangled from the grey web, all marvellously clear, and each tree sending a gigantic shadow across the fields in the horizontal light of the early sun. Towards the east, looking along the down, Kitson Hill, which I think must be Kithurst, Kitson Hill rose in the golden mist of flames and sunshine. A small breeze stirred, bringing a quiet accompaniment to the one bee already buzzing his way from flower to flower. Have a quick slurp of coffee, if you don't mind. As we dressed, grooms mounted the hill to exercise their horses on the high turf, making bright silhouettes against the sky. Did you hear that? Did you just hear that? There was a little sort of funny bubbling noise from my cup. I beg your pardon. Sorry about that. It just took me by surprise. I thought an animal was wincing at me. Anyway, yes, they made these grooms mounted the hill to exercise their horses on the high turf, making bright silhouettes against the sky as they galloped on by the ridge. The grooms singing lustily and shouting out morning greetings to us. We had no clothes on, but all the great things were at home up there in the ravishing beauty. To eat supper and to sleep on that high, clean place above the rubbishy world of greed and sweat was to know the meaning of rest. To awaken there and breakfast was more the beginning of a new life than a new day. There was no denying that aged signpost which, tottering with the years, still pointed with all the weight of its experience to Burpham, and we hauled the barrow down the grassy track, just discernible. We headed for a world of green ridges and deep valleys, of long stretches of pasture dotted with wandering sheep. Flowers of blue and gold and red and white blazoned our way, and we walked from the great grassy spaces into weird, wild little copses of hawthorn and elder and small oaks. It's doing it again. Oh, it's my thermos. You see, I took my thermos with me when I was filming, and I didn't use it all up, and it was just hissing at me. Anyway, sorry about that. What have we got? Laura Noel C. Good morning from British Columbia. We're watching our little valley fill up with rosy sunlight whilst listening to the reading. Oh, fantastic. How lovely is that? It's a similar sort of thing going on here. Wan, you've not been out for a while. You look a bit pale. Is that what it means? I think the word is used to describe the look of someone who is a bit unwell. Ah, wan and pale. Is it wan? Is that how it's pronounced? Wan? Rhymes with van? Or is it... Well, what else could it be? Man, wan, has to be. I've never heard that word before. It must be an old... I've heard, we mentioned presently as being archaic yesterday, but wan is very archaic. Anyway, sorry about that. Lost my space. Yes, it was small oaks. We emerged from the mossy woods of stunted trees to the long undulations of the lower downs, the wide spaces of pasture and large open tracts of young corn, ending with the steep rampart of Arundel Park, rising over the valley of the River Arun. The sun poured into this huge basin of grass, casting a spell upon the earth, and we walked a drowsy dreamland, bright with flowers and green grass, odorous with mild herbs, and gently lulled by the passing breeze. We followed the leper's path. Now, where is the leper's path? Passing old barrows and entrenchments, grass-grown and rounded with age, seeming to walk in the primeval times of innocence and beauty, of the simple goodness and loveliness of the earth, remote from the silly fever of industrial civilization. So it's amazing how many people in the books at that period were talking about the industrial period of civilization. So it seems to me he's pretty much on the South Downs Way there, isn't he? Looking down towards Amberley, and then he mentions Bertham. And I know at Rackham, on Rackham Hill, there are the barrows and things up there. I can't think where else. Sorry, I'm doing this without showing you where I'm looking. It's altogether not a terribly good clear map. But let's have it. If we go out, we've got Rackham. Where's Bertham? Bury, North Stoke. So, oh, wait a minute. So Bertham is south of him. You wouldn't be able to see it from there. So he must have... He's done a weird journey to get there anyway, from when he was at Bignor. I mean, Bignor was on the other side, on the Never Eat Shredded Wheat, west side of the river. And then he's sort of taken this weird circuitous route to go to Storrington. And now he's coming back on himself just a little bit further south. It is a strange path. The path is part of an old medieval route known as the Leper's Way that linked an old leper colony at Lee Farm with the church of St. Mary in Bertham. Lyndon always knows what's what, says TurboStream. Rhymes with Ron. One. Oh, one. Rhymes with Ron, says Wan, not Van. Rhymes with one. Oh, okay. Sherlock Holmes and the Curious Case of the Hissing Thermos Flask. Yes, that's right. So, so where is that then? I'm just trying to find it on old maps. Maybe I should have got an OS map, which would have been a bit easier. Where the hell is Lee's Farm? Down towards Bertham. That must be on here somewhere. Lower Bertham Farm. Hang on a minute. Let's just see. We're taking a slight divergence here. Parham, Sullington, yeah. Rackham. And just looking, as you can see. Wepham down. Clapham. No, he's got to be over here. What's that? Peppering Farm. Lower Bertham Farm. Old Chalk Pit. Peppering. There's Bertham. There's St. Mary's Church. Is this the footpath? Up here to Peppering Farm. Where's Lee Farm then? Interesting. I'll have to have a look back at that later. Sorry, I don't want to linger on the waste time. Sorry, I can't find the cursor to switch back to the Vogue show. There it is. Lee Farm is at Patching, I think, says Linda Kane. Oh, is it? Oh, right. Oh, right, back at Patching. Well, that puts him... That's really bizarre, isn't it? Patching. There's Clapham, there's Patching. Harrow Hill. Okay, well, maybe that's the NLS side-by-side map is really good, says TurboStream. Yes, it is very good. It doesn't come over on video terribly good, but anyway, let's not worry too much about the route, because where I thought he was going towards Amberley, he's obviously come down across what he calls Kitson Hill. Anyway, let's crack on. The leper's path, passing old barrows and entrenchments, grass grown and rounded with age, seeming to walk in the primeval time of innocence and beauty, of the simple goodness and loveliness of earth remote from the silly fever of industrial civilization. The grass track became many grass tracks, some disappearing alluringly over a hill, others falling into the valley and winding their way to unseen destinations. We could not believe in the existence of Burpham. Impossible that an ordinary village with a grocer's shop could exist in this land of far away and long ago, but coming to some men resting under a stack, ruddy men in corduroys sprawled out on the hay. We inquired without much faith if such a place did exist. Like indolent lotus-eaters, the men waved us on vaguely, without words, too content to speak. From an urchin ambling over the grass, we gathered directions more explicit. "Do you want to get to Burpham sharp?" said he in a very high voice. "Yes, we do, son," said the... "Yes, we do." It's Yorkshire, isn't it? Aye, we do, son," said the utility in a very low voice. "Aye, we do, son, know what I mean." The urchin took a deep breath and rolled his eyes desperately over the downs, and plunged into his task. "Well, you go down there till you get to this road where the hill goes off left, and if you goes down there, that's the road to Arundel, and don't go to Burpham. But if you want to get to Burpham sharp, then the road goes straight, and you don't go down to the left, but the road goes straight on, and that'll bring you to Burpham sharp." His high voice left us in a sudden, bewildered silence, and with the impression of immense difficulties on the road to Burpham, so bewildering that we dismissed the subject for fear of other complications. "What you going to do?" inquired the utility. "Well..." "Oh, and what are you going to do?" required the utility. "Well, you see, it's like this. There's two of us. There's me, and then there's my brother, and he's left school. They call him Winston, and I'm called Percy, and I'm taking his dinner because he's out with the sheep, and I must be moving because I got to get back to school sharp." Conscience struck at having kept Winston's dinner waiting, we left our minute fellow to trudge off, stick in hand and basket on shoulder, to find his shepherd brother at some mysterious rendezvous among those sheep crying melodiously on the gentle, undulating hills. Burpham, we discovered, was about 20 yards away, just round the next bush, and we blushed to find ourselves suddenly in the village street before we could cease certain clumsy efforts to extract music from a mouth organ. But this remote village, far removed from the highway, was as peaceful and uninhabited, and uninhabited as the Downs. The shop was closed, the post office was closed, and we wandered past the cottages without catching sight of a single shy inhabitant. And in fact, if you go there today, it's the same bloody story. You won't see a soul. They're all either inside and mummified, or they're all in town somewhere earning a fortune to pay for their houses. I'm convinced. If, by the way, you live in Burpham and you think that was an insult, you're very welcome to email me. Anyway, we sat on the grass under the trees outside the church gate and lunched. And now, outside the church gate, depending on which church gate, because there's one to the west, you get a beautiful view across the valley, the Arun Valley, to Arundel Castle. And there is a seat there, and I wonder if that's where they are. They sat on the grass under the trees outside the church gate and lunched, and decided that it was a village which deserved a performance. Out of the dreamy afternoon, some children appeared, shy, large-eyed children, who edged away from us, but at the proposal to give a Punch and Judy show, their eyes sparkled, and they continued their journey to the farm for milk at quite twice the previous pace. Burpham is lodged on the side of a hill, and it fills 2 streets compactly. The only flat place for a show was outside the inn, that's true, and we not well outside the inn or on the cricket ground there, in actual fact. And we knocked at the door to ask permission. A stout lady opened the door cautiously. Outside the inn, by the way, is a car park now. A stout lady opened the door cautiously and surveyed us severely, her head thrown back in fighting mood. "Could we put up a Punch and Judy for an hour or so this evening?" "No," snapped the stout lady with definite asperity. "Certainly not. We should not like it outside here. It would be too riotous for us. You certainly cannot put it up outside here." The severe lady disappeared, and our gathering arguments were confronted by a slamming door. We retired like condemned criminals, exceedingly alarmed at touting a show about the country which was too riotous for a village pub. It was then that we encountered a gentleman who looked at our barrow interrogatively, and, on discovering that we had entertainment which we were dying to exhibit, entered into the affair in a very proper, charming, and hospitable manner. If we could find somewhere to camp, he could possibly arrange for our pitch for a theatre, and to find an audience too. Our spirits reversed with a bound. We were no longer riotous performers intent upon upsetting the religious calm of village pubs. We were artists, honoured with an invitation to perform. Our hearts bounded to the skies, and we vowed to give Burpham such a show as it would never see again. Inside and mummified. Classic, Richard. Yeah, well, that's... There's a line in Laurie Lee's, when he's going to Spain, what is that? Not The Last of the Summer Wine, a Summer Walk or something. What is that one by Laurie Lee? Fantastic. Not Sided with Rosie, but the other one. And he leaves wherever he leaves, and he Coventry or somewhere, and he makes his way down through London, Wembley way, and he makes his way down, and he's entering through Wembley, as I remember. And he's looking at suburbia, and he looks at the houses, and they're all the same, and he makes this comment, I can't remember it exactly, but he says something like, yes, everybody's inside fermenting as they peer out the windows, or some such thing. But I remember he talks about them as fermenting, and I thought it was so beautifully done. But my version is that they're in there mummified, because you never see them. Interrogatively. Oh, is that looking at the barrow interrogatively? As I steps outside one midsummer's morning, or something like that. Yes, that's right, Lee Lawson. That's right. It's a beautiful book, and I did think about reading that actually. But he goes on into. I mean, Morton would like it because he ends up in Spain. It's a fabulous read. Anyway, sorry about that. Yes, I just caught your thing about mummified, inside and mummified. Our hearts bounded to the skies, and we vowed to give Burpham a show like they would never see again. If only the great public realised what immense joy a little encouragement can bring to an itinerant performer, I am sure we would see the man with bagpipes or the barrel organ invited out of the cheerless street into the drawing-room a little more frequently. With the responsibility of disturbing the quiet evening in the village lifted from our shoulders, and some pennies in prospect, we began immediately with foolish carelessness to ask anywhere and everywhere for a pitch. We were passed on, barked at by dogs, advised to please ourselves, invited to set up in a miniature cottage garden among the cabbages, And finally, after passing through all Burpham and crossing the stream which runs across the road, crossing the stream that runs across the road, I wonder where that is, we were at last settled in a meadow high up on Wepham Down. Gracious. That's so interesting. That's just, when you know an area and they talk like that, wonder where the stream is that crosses the road. In the meantime, our little affair of a performance had been arranged. We set up the show in the recreation ground, rearranged a wood pile into seats, and so had a very good theatre quickly improvised. Our courteous organiser, accompanied by his wife, was the first of the audience to arrive. They were followed by visitors and villagers, both children and adults. The landlady of the inn did not arrive, and neither did I nor the utility have the courage to invite her. It was his only duty in which he failed. It was a delightful audience to work with, and Burpham, the isolated village hiding shyly in the downs, we began to see was altogether an ideal community. Linda says there was a ford which led to Wepham. Oh, was there? How interesting. I'm going to look on the map in a minute. Nearly at the end of this chapter. The stream might have crossed the road at Splash Farm. It's under the road now. It's the other little lane that goes to Burpham. Yes, Splash Farm. Well, I guess that must be where it's got its name from. By the time we had mounted the hill to Wepham Down again, we were tired. But we supped contentedly in the tent, looking out on the hills. A 17th century cottage in the foreground, chimney pots among the elms, curving fields at all angles, and Arundel Hill like a high green cliff behind it. Pigeons cooed in the elms above us, and crickets cherubed in the grass. Our glorious day, beginning with dawn above the world, continuing with tramping the grassy track over the hills, and the friendly reception in Burpham, now ended serenely with peace and beauty, and the moonlight stealing over the downs. And there we come to the end of chapter 4, and we get chapter 3. And chapter 4 is ahead of us with Arundel and Amberley give us pennies. But before we do that, let me just go to the map, and let's just see. So, hang on, I've lost Burpham now. Warning Camp Angmering, Burpham. Here we go. Let's come down here. So there's Wepham, and there's Burpham. I'm just wondering if there is a show the search panel. Let's just have a look at this map. Here we go. We've got water on this one. So is this... Oh, here's the ford. Here's the ford. Aha. Look at that. Oh, I see. So he comes down the bottom of... So the village... There's St. Mary's Church. And the pub... The public house is here. And so that's where he knocked on the door of the pub. And he wasn't allowed to do it. So he's obviously come down here. Down this lane. There's the ford. And then the recreational ground, it's somewhere down here. I wonder where that was. Interesting. And then he's on Wepham Down. So they are probably up here somewhere. How interesting. So there's Wepham. And as you say, all of that pond is gone now. There's where the ford would have been. And I can't see Splash Farm, though. Is that Splash Farm? There's a version of the map. That's the version of the map I'm following, says The stream might have crossed the road at Splash Farm. Oh, yes. Look for the word Ford at. Is that not it there? Anyway. Cool beans. That's really interesting. So, chapter 4. We used to be able to buy unpasteurised milk and free-range eggs at Splash Farm years ago, says Lee Lawson. So I can't really see Splash Farm on here, as in mentioned Splash Farm, but it's at Wepham. It must be there. Anyway, right, let's carry on. Whilst we've got time. This is all good fun, isn't it? I quite like this. I hope it's not too disjointed for you. Let me know if it's too disjointed. In this continual passing on, one's emotions are assaulted. You wonder and are then seized with an alarming affection for some particular place of exceptional beauty that it almost breaks your heart to leave. It was possibly the fine weather that made us lazy and contented at Burpham, so that we lingered with the packing and wondered if we would ever come upon anything so good again. But it is impossible to suspend one's life in eternal perfection. Otherwise, I would have done so long ago, perhaps on that sunny morning at 7 years ago, when the world seemed suddenly to be made of gold and so good and glorious that any moment I might have ascended into the blue like an angel, or an angel might have appeared out of the blue to play with me. And so, in the course of things, in the gliding, ever-changing pattern of life, we pulled out of the meadow on Wepham Down and went down the road for Arundel. Now that's interesting because he says 7 years ago, so he's writing this 7 years hence. This published in 1933, so I'm guessing that he must have done this trip in 1927 then. Is that right? Of course, we soon forgot Burpham. It was a pleasant road under the cool boughs of the overhanging beeches, and there was drama in descending from the hills to the marshy meadows by the river. And then one of the rubber tyres broke loose, which had to be mended. And so one absorbing thing followed another as we walked, with expectancy, towards the town. Over the reedy fields rose the many turrets of Arundel Castle, and the high rampart of its park, with herds of deer feeding on the green slopes. Now, I wonder if he's coming down, if he's gone across from Burpham over to the road, the main road where the station is. That would be interesting. The farm is those buildings you showed by the ford. Oh, right. Thanks, Lee. Snatching 2 minutes from grape picking to listen, says Andrew Norris. Oh, from grape picking. We'll catch up with the whole episode later. Oh, marvellous. Thoroughly enjoyed your archaeology video, by the way, Andrew. Said he was 7 years of age. Think he said at 7 years of age. Oh, did he? Is that what he said? I thought he said 7 years ago. Because I mean, his writing, he's obviously written this after the event. Let me just go back and see what he said. I would have done so long ago, perhaps on that sunny morning at 7 years of age, when the world seemed suddenly to be made of gold. Why, what was happening when he was 7? He was born in 1887, so 7 years of age. That was 1903 then, was it? Yes. Oh, right. Oh, okay, yeah. I goofed up there. Over the reedy fields towards the many turrets of Arundel Castle and a high rampart on its park with herds of wildebeest, herds of deer feeding on the green slopes. There was a feeling of old England in the air, walking from thatched Burpham to Wepham on this winding road with its broad verges of grass and flowers, the giant old oaks and the glimpses of the grey castle through the boughs. He must be heading south on that road to the main road. Robin Hood came to mind, palmers and pilgrims, friars and monks, or glittering men-at-arms one expected to meet at every turn. Actually, you meet a tar-spreading affair, and then you come out to the main road. Bingo. We know where he is. We know he's just come out from up where... what's the name of the pub? Cross, whatever it's called, on that slope down, isn't he? Everything worth living for disappeared with the first step on that tarry way, or tarry way. And yes, it's interesting. I mean, here he is in 1933, when we would think that there is barely any traffic. And you try turning out of that turning, and I've done it many times, to get onto the main A27, either returning home to Worthing, just almost opposite Arundel Station, and the traffic thunders through. If only they would build a bypass to go through. Oh, I don't know. Isn't there some woods that way they could just plough? Shh. Everything worth living for disappeared with the first step on that tarry way. Between the car-infested square at Storrington and this main road, we had walked the true England, and Sussex undefiled. We had walked with the acres of grass and flowers, with sweet odours and pleasant sounds, by comfortable-looking cottages and bright gardens, sounds, scents, sights, and the whole feel of the world, harmonious and delighting. And then, suddenly, we were plunged into that main road, and all that damned fuss there is to make the world ugly and uncomfortable. If, of course, you come from somewhere worse, like Pimlico, then that road may be an avenue of loveliness. But coming as we did from the undefiled surface of the earth, we walked the noisy road in acute distress. And we kept very carefully to our narrow way, walking circumspectly on the edge of the black, shiny road, keeping our craft well tucked in until we traversed the grey bridge over the Arun and found ourselves in Arundel, and immediately set about the business of performing. So I'm guessing, I don't suppose that roundabout was there back in those days. Let's go back. So I know where he's gone. For those that don't, let's just quickly have a look. So he's gone from Burpham and Wepham, and he's gone down. Now it's not so easy on which. Well, trying to work it out. Warning Camp. That's what I was thinking. On Warning Camp. Yes. So he's come down here, onto what is now. The main A27. Where's Warning Camp? There's Warning Camp. It's actually quite tricky to follow the road in 1913. And so there's the station. Where's the station? Wait a minute. Oh, here we go. He's come out here. He's come out here. That's right, not Warning Camp. What is it? Crossbush. That's what I was trying to think. I know what I'm talking about. The Convent of Poor Clares is up there. Can't go in. Private. So there's the station. He's come out here. He doesn't mention the station, but it was clearly there. He goes past the railway cottage. He comes down here. And here is the old bridge on Queen Anne Street. And he's come down here. And... So I have performed street theatre in Arundel many times in my long-distance past, in the Fringe Festival that they have. And just here is the sort of square area where you can perform. And I have performed, so I'm curious to know if he performs there, because it's a perfect place in Arundel to do it. So... It's funny how... And now, by the way, I've made a video which will be out either tomorrow, which mirrors Lee Lawson's video of her grandfather doing Punch and Judy, and because I don't know that I'll have this finished in time, the one I'm working on, to put out. But I did one where I'm just in here really, and I talk about my life doing itinerant travelling in a more modern day with some of the comedy characters and costumes, and I show you the pictures and talk about the sort of stuff I did, because I think Lee has set us on this theatrical old travelling around performing, which of course it's interesting because in these days at the moment with COVID and not being able to open theatres and all of that, none of us are allowed to do it. So it's just quite fascinating. So well done, Lee, for suggesting such a brilliant theme. So I think that's where. So he sets about performing. That is to say, we abandoned the barrow on the little quay and set out to shop, to walk up the hill under the high castle walls, which tower over the street, and to examine the churches. So it's a cathedral up there, isn't it? There's the cathedral, and then there's the church I did with a local chap up on the top there, with the two, with the Catholic altar and the Protestant altar up there. Eventually, we discovered the town hall. Oh yes, Julia and I have been in the town hall. Knocked at all its dungeon doors in order to interview authority. Yeah, we've been in there and looked at the dungeon, but found no response to our knockings. We loitered among the pillars, discovered a delightful old sedan chair, and presently encountered two gentlemen who appeared mysteriously from among the grey stone pillars. We immediately confronted them with the problem of Punch and Judy showing, and found that we had come upon the very heart of authority, his worship the mayor himself. There was no objection to our proposal, and we were referred to the proper officer, a tall man in uniform with a peaked cap, who would be found somewhere about the town. Curious that he says they didn't find very many people. There must have been people meandering in the busy town like Arundel. But we couldn't find him, that elusive tall fellow in a uniform. But we saw a good deal of Arundel, the jolly houses and tiny cottages in the hilly streets, and then we came to the river and some boats, and boarding one of them, we rowed up the river with a quantity of lunch in the stern to see if we could discover the keeper of the Punch and Judy pitch anywhere in that direction. And that was how we did find him. Do you think he's going down to the Black Rabbit? And that's how we did find him. For just as we returned to the landing stage, the uniformed official strolled by magnificently, and nearly upsetting the boat, we pounced on him. Admirable fellow! For £50 he allowed us to set up our show on the quay by the gravel dump and among the brickbats for the rest of the day. So, on the quay, that's interesting. I wonder where that was 90 years ago. So, I performed here, but as we can see, Timber Yard. I mean, the quay is what? There's a wharf on this side, but it must be on the west side, surely. So somewhere along here, I would have thought. Boathouse, look. Swallow Brewery. Look at that great big brewery there. Yeah, interesting. The landing stage is marked on the map, says Nigel Sadler. Is it? Wait a minute. Let me go back. The landing stage. On this same map? Oh, here. Oh, right down this end. Here we go, landing stage. Oh, okay. So it wasn't... Oh, hang on, there's another landing stage here near the gasworks. So, it must be down here. Interesting. on the south end of the village. What's interesting is, just trying to think, because the bypass. Sorry, I'm just the bypass comes down here. There's a roundabout somewhere. Oops. There's a roundabout somewhere here, and the bypass comes round here and goes up here somewhere, presumably. Does it go onto this road here? Is that where it goes? No, it must come round here somewhere. And they put in, anyway, that's for another. That's me getting myself lost in the thing. Move the slider, the big blue dot, to make 2020 a bit. Move the slider with the big. What do you mean? Move the slider with the big blue dot. Oh, here. Oh, right. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got you. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so I was pretty right there. So it comes over. Yeah. How interesting. Oh, sorry. I'm doing that. You can't see it. Beg your pardon. Beg your pardon. There we go. So the big roundabout. There's the roundabout. Yeah, that's right. There it is. Comes round there, down there, and goes up here. Fantastic, isn't it? And how much of that water is still there? Yeah, the water is still there. You wouldn't know as you drive up that hill. There's a trout farm or salmon farm or something in there, isn't there? Fantastic. Anyway, okay, sorry. We're running out of time. Yes, so they go down there and they find the bloke. I've lost my space, so where the hell was I? That's to say we found the airship and the brickbats. A boy rose from the earth and bombarded us with questions. 2 more boys offered us very generously to help us. 5 boys became engrossed in our labours. 2 girls joined the boys. 2 girls and 7 boys reckoned we would soon begin. A whole host of urchins began to tell us to hurry up. It was curious that we had walked about town for some hours without noticing any children, but now, as soon as we began to erect the show, they came about us like flies, lively urchins who conversed in ringing shouts. We suggested that they go home for some pennies and come back with a lot more friends, also with pennies. But they clung to us, afraid of missing some of the show, and not very interested in the question of pennies. We were a godsend to them, and they settled themselves over the gravel dump, telling us to hurry up and begin the show. Shy adults began to linger at discreet distances, and it was not long before we were performing to a good crowd. They were a silent audience until a stout, very solemn woman suddenly burst into a wild, solitary shriek of laughter, and after that our affair went with a swing. I continued performing until long after I was heartily sick of the business, and the utility collected the pennies assiduously until it became necessary for us to think of moving on to find a camp. Holding out for as many pennies as possible, we had left the matter of a night's lodging rather late, and as we pulled through the town and up the hill under the castle walls, past the parish church in the castle grounds, that's the one I made the video with, and the castle church in the parish grounds. Oh yes, I've just said, oh yes. The night was coming down. We passed into the woods on the hilltop, which was solemn and dark, and began casting about for pitches. We collected water from a keeper's dog, the keeper talking ominously about camping and advising further on, but we were too tired to be worried by keepers and trespassing, and resolved to pitch the tent on the first green sward we came to in the woods. A bold resolution which was disturbed by the sight of a constable standing at the crossroads by Whiteway. Ha! We know where Whiteway is, don't we? Yes, how many times have we driven up there? So let's just drive up to Whiteways. Now I need to let's go back to modern. How does this bloody thing work? Yes, up to Whiteways, which is here somewhere. Here we go. There's Whiteways. That's a crossroads. It's now a roundabout, but let's go and see what it was like. Curious. There's the crossroads. Oh, how interesting. The crossroads is here. Oh, look, you can do it with your mouse. I didn't know you could do that. And the original road... Oh, look, the original road went through there. And now there's a car park at the top there, and it's a beauty spot, and they have a mini market up there, and here you can get teas and coffees and what have you. But the old road used to go there. That's interesting, isn't it? But there's a lane here. I didn't know about this. Wait a minute. There's a lane down there, which is probably a walkway track. Oh, I'm going to go back up there and investigate. I'm going to follow this. I'm going to make more videos and follow this route. I think this is just fascinating. There's a long walk up the steep hill, though. Yes, it is alive. I've cycled up that hill that way when I cycled in 2006 or something, or 2005 to Bignor from Worthing. It's about 7 miles or something. And I cycled up that hill. And as I was cycling slowly up that hill, this car passed me, a small car with kids in it. And I say kids, teenagers. And one of them lobbed a milkshake at me long before they were lobbing them at, what's his face, who was the UKIP. Long before they chucked them at him, this guy lobbed it at me on the bike and it glanced off my arm. And I was going off to interview on a podcast. It was bloody annoying. Anyway, that was just a bit of fun. Full of motorbikes, says Linda Kane. Oh, yes, up there at Whiteways. It certainly is. So let's see. There was a policeman up there. So that's interesting. Hang on, let's get back down there. We're running out of time. I need to find a little spot to end. So it may be round here. Sorry, I've been a bit diverted with the maps and stuff. But when you know the area, it just really makes it so much more fun. So, yes, we continued walking. Hang on. Oh, yes. A bold resolution which was disturbed by the sight of a constable standing at the crossroads by Whiteway. Interesting the police used to do that, isn't it? There were quantities of grass stretching out on either hand, cool, inviting lawns, made for camping. But under the surveillance of the constable, we were afraid and nonplussed. How should a vagabond behave when a policeman appears at an awkward moment? We were suddenly very conscious of our evil intentions, and although it was dark, 2 figures stealing over the grass with a strange barrow that looked like a corpse on a stretcher would have been very interesting to a policeman. We continued walking, passing the terrifying official, wishing him good night. But as soon as we had walked into the deep shadow under the trees, we concluded that he could no longer see us. We no longer felt guilty, and blowing out the lantern, we plunged into the dark wood, determined to tramp no further. We gasped in terror at every stick that exploded loudly under the wheels. We stood still with thumping hearts, expecting gamekeepers and constables to arrest us. But the immense silence of the wood reassured us, and we began to set the tent stealthily and in silence, and with considerable difficulty in the dark. I'm going to leave it there. Because that seems a good place to leave it. But how curious. Let me just go back to the map. Sorry to keep going back to the map. Anne H says, I'm very much enjoying the map diversions as I've never been there. It is interesting how much roads and paths have changed in time. Yes. Hands up, how many are following on a map themselves? Come on, own up, says Linda Kane. Now, Nigel Farage, bloody hero, then and now. There we go, yes, good old Nigel Farage. I have to say I am a fan of his. How about in the footsteps of Mr. Wilkinson, perchance a real Punch and Judy performer. Yes. Right, let me just go back to the map. So there's Whiteways, okay, and they go. We don't know where, so presumably somewhere in this wood. I'm hedging my bets that he's. Wait a minute. Let's go and see the overlay. So the constable is here at the crossroads. So they get into the dark woods. I'm guessing they don't go into this Arundel bit because there's a lodge just here, just on the screen. So I imagine they must be on this, because also this is this top bit is not on a slope, which would be perfect. It does start to slope down. Julia and I have walked. We parked the car somewhere down here and did a walk last year in a circle just round there, looking at the signs of spring. So I reckon he's somewhere in here, although, of course, he does walk much further than you can imagine. So he's probably somewhere in here. And also there's this path, which would be interesting to follow. But what I wanted to show you was, if I can, I don't know which is the best way to do this, because so anyway, there's Whiteways with all the other stuff. But just down here, so you've got Berry Hill comes down here like this. And then you've got Bignor. Where's Bignor gone? West Burton. You've got Bignor here, where they were. So this isn't... hang on, let me just get... Let me just get Google Maps up just for a second. I just want to, because if you don't know the area, this is quite extraordinary, really. And I guess he didn't know the area. So here we go. So he's started his journey here in Rudgwick, there, and he's made this journey, which I think he comes down here. And I drove this today. He comes down here. There's little roads that come down here, crosses here, goes to Wisborough Green. He goes from Wisborough Green to Storrington. But he goes to Stopham, doesn't he? He gets down to Pulborough and he goes to Stopham. Then he comes back down to Storrington. Here. Most peculiar journey. Then he climbs up over the hills. And he comes to Burpham, which is somewhere here. Here it is. And Wepham. And then he walks down to Arundel. And then he comes back out of Arundel, up this hill here, to Whiteways, which is here, look. That's where he is. He's camped here. And Bignor is just there. It's just there. So he's done this very strange route, which, if I go back to... where's the thing? If I go back to the map in the book, which we can see his meanderings. Yes, he comes down. He goes from Rudgwick, Wisborough Green, Pulborough. I mean, he's got some of the things. Where's Bignor? He goes into Bignor from Pulborough. He's gone to Storrington. So he must have gone back up to Pulborough, down to Storrington. Oh, yes, he does, because we remember him saying that. So he's gone to Parham, blah, blah, blah. He did go to Stopham, because he tried to get to Petworth. And Burpham, and he's come over here to Arundel, up to Whiteways Lodge. What he doesn't do is give us on the map the actual route. He's just got the... I don't know how much of that's in focus, sorry. So he's here. Come on, stay in focus, damn thing. Sorry about this. Bloody stupid little thing. Anyway, I need to. I'll photograph this so I can refer to it and try and plot it a bit better. I think that would be better, wouldn't it? He's walking in circles, going to Amberley next. Yes, I haven't read ahead, so I don't know where he goes. But is there a map on the back? No, it's the same map on the back. What I will do, I think, is I will photograph the map on the book, blow it up, and try and draw his route on there. It is fascinating. It is fascinating, isn't it? 1930s travelling, absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that's it for today. I better go. I've got to light the SE and get ready for the Vogue show. I will go and photograph. I'm going to photograph that now because I'm working on the video of the first part from Rudgwick to Whisper Green as a trial. I only shot it on my GoPro and it looks rubbish. I need to get it with my gimbal and proper camera, but the weather was crap out there, and I just wanted to see if it would work. So I've cobbled something together. I hope it will be all right. It'll probably be the day after tomorrow when that comes out. He's going to be down the Horton Road after they've kipped, says Linda Kane. Don't look ahead, Linda. Don't ruin it. Don't tell us where he's going, because that he'll just be going back again, won't he? Down on the Houghton Road. Anyway, there we go. Thank you very much. All good stuff. And I will catch up with you later on. Thanks for watching, and have a good afternoon. It's all good fun, isn't it? What a lovely diversion this is. Until next time. I'm just trying to think where the... oh, yeah, it's here, isn't it? That's what I need to do. Oh, I just turned the camera off there. I'm sorry, I'm talking to myself. Until next time, take care and bye-bye. Bye-bye.